What would you do if you had access to a fortune and no one was watching? Sometimes honesty comes from the least expected person, and a small act can change the destiny of several lives. This story will show you how a test of trust became the salvation of 3 lonely souls. Before we begin, if you like this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe to our channel Tales of Kindness. We post videos every day. Give the video a like if you enjoy this story and leave a comment telling us from what city you're watching and at what time. Brian Anderson left the safe wide open. Stacks of money in plain sight, thousands of dollars unprotected. He pretended to sleep on the couch in his office while the 5-year-old daughter of his cleaning lady entered the room alone. The girl approached the open safe. Brian watched through half-closed eyelids. With his heart racing, Anna reached out her little hands toward the money. What she did in the next 30 seconds left this millionaire businessman stunned, and what came after that scene changed 3 lives forever. Brian Anderson never imagined he'd be betrayed by someone he'd trusted for over a decade. Mark, his accountant, the man who knew every dollar that came in and out of the company, had embezzled nearly $3 million. The revelation came through a routine audit that Brian almost canceled due to overconfidence. When the numbers didn't add up, when the offshore accounts appeared, when the fraudulent transfers came to light, Brian felt something he'd never felt before, the sense that he couldn't trust anyone anymore. Mark wasn't alone. He had accomplices inside the company, people Brian greeted every day, people who smiled at him in the hallways. The police were investigating, the lawyers were handling the lawsuits, but the emotional damage was already done. Brian started questioning every gesture, every word, every look. Was there anyone still honest in this world? Did kindness still exist? Or was he surrounded only by masks? It was a Friday afternoon when Brian had an idea. Teresa Newman had been working as a cleaner in his office for 6 months. A discreet, polite woman, always with a tired smile on her face. She arrived at 5 a.m. and left at noon, rushing to her second job. Brian knew she had a young daughter, Anna, just 5 years old. Sometimes the girl came with her when school was out or when Teresa couldn't leave her with the neighbor. Anna was a quiet child with big, curious eyes. She sat on the reception couch drawing on recycled paper that Teresa pulled from the trash. The girl never asked for anything, never touched anything, just observed the adult world around her with that strange seriousness of kids who grow up too fast. That Friday, Brian made a decision. He wanted to know if honesty still existed in the world. He needed a sign, anything to restore his faith in humanity. So he set up a test and he left the office safe wide open, not just ajar but fully exposed with the steel door swung back. Inside, he arranged stacks of cash bills of 100s, 50s, bundles upon bundles, at least $40,000 there in plain view. Brian reclined on the leather couch, closed his eyes almost fully, leaving just a slit to watch, and pretended to sleep. His breathing became heavy, forced mimicking deep slumber. The office was silent. Teresa was cleaning the outer hallway, and Anna, as usual, was in reception. That's when Brian heard the light footsteps. The office door was slightly open. Anna appeared in the doorway in her faded pink dress and scuffed Velcro sneakers. The girl looked at Brian on the couch. She waited a few seconds, then her eyes found the open safe. Brian felt his heart speed up. Every muscle in his body tensed, but he stayed still. Anna walked slowly to the safe. Her tiny hands reached out. Brian was ready for the worst. Ready for another disappointment, ready to discover that even a 5-year-old had been corrupted by the world. But what Anna did in the next 30 seconds made Brian forget to breathe. Anna touched the money. She started organizing it. Her small hands took a slightly crooked bundle of bills and aligned it with the others. Then she took another bundle that was sticking out and pushed it back, making everything even. The girl worked with the silent concentration of someone piecing together a puzzle, straightening stack by stack, piling the bills like building blocks. Brian watched, paralyzed. This didn't make sense. A 5-year-old girl, probably from a struggling family, facing more money than she'd ever seen, and she was tidying it up. She even ran her hand over the safe's surface, wiping away imaginary dust before stepping back 2 paces and nodding approvingly at her work. That's when Anna noticed Brian had woken up. She turned her face and gave a shy little smile. "Sorry, mister, I didn't mean to wake you." Brian sat up slowly, still processing what he'd just seen. His voice came out hoarse, loaded with emotion he hadn't expected. "Anna, what were you doing?" The girl looked at the safe, then at Brian as if the answer was obvious. Fixing the money. It was messy, Messy money makes people sad. Who taught you that? Nobody. But when my mom can't pay the bills and the money isn't enough, she gets sad. So I thought if the money's messy, it doesn't work right. I fixed it so it would work. Brian felt a lump in his throat. The child's logic, pure and devastatingly simple, had just given him the answer he was seeking. Kindness still existed, honesty still existed, and it was right there in the form of a 5-year-old with worn sneakers and a faded dress. "Didn't you think about taking any bills?" Anna's eyes widened, genuinely surprised by the question. "But it's not mine, mister. My mom says taking other people's things is wrong, really wrong." Brian swallowed hard. Teresa was raising a daughter with values that many adults had lost decades ago, or maybe never had. After that day, Brian started observing not invasively, but with genuine attention. He noticed Teresa always arrived exactly at 5 a.m., never a minute late. He noticed she ate cold lunches because there was no time to heat them before rushing to her second job. He noticed her clothes were clean and well kept but visibly old. He noticed she never asked for anything, never complained, just worked quietly. Brian asked some discreet questions to the receptionist. He learned Teresa lived in Hope Heights, a rough neighborhood on the east side of Chicago. She took 2 buses to get to the office in the downtown financial district. She left home at 3:30 a.m., worked 3 different jobs, raised Anna alone. The girl's father had vanished before she was even born. A week after the safe incident, Brian was in the office when he heard Anna's voice in the hallway. The girl was talking to her mother. "Mom, the mister looks sad again." "I saw him. Anna, don't bother Mr. Brian. He's very busy. But I want to help. I have an idea." Brian smiled quietly. That girl had something special, something the world hadn't destroyed yet. The next day, Anna showed up in the office with something in her hands. When Brian saw what it was, his eyes burned. Anna held a pink plastic piggy bank shaped like a pig. It was one of those cheap ones sold at neighborhood dollar stores for $1 or $2. The pig had a princess sticker on the side and a scratch on the back. The girl entered the office walking slowly, as if carrying something precious. "Mr. Brian." Brian looked up from his computer screen. He'd spent the night reviewing contracts, searching for more signs of betrayal in the company. He was exhausted, but Anna's smile softened something inside him. "Hi, Anna. Everything okay? I brought you something." The girl approached and placed the pink piggy bank on the mahogany desk right next to Brian's wireless mouse. The pig made a jingling sound of coins inside. "This is yours, Anna. You don't need to give it to me, but I want to. You look sad because of money. I saw it. So I saved a little to help you not be sad anymore." Brian felt his throat tighten. He picked up the piggy bank carefully as if it were made of glass, not cheap plastic. He shook it gently. It had weight. Anna had really collected coins in there. "How long did it take you to save this?" "Since my birthday. Grandma gave me $10. I bought the piggy bank and saved the rest. Then Aunt Carla gave me coins when I helped her with groceries, and I found 50 cents on the ground near the bus stop." Brian looked at this 5-year-old girl. She'd gathered every cent over months, probably gave up candy, toys, anything a normal kid would want. And now she was giving it all to a man she barely knew just because she sensed he was sad. "Anna, I can't accept this. This money is yours. You worked hard for it, but I want to help. My mom says helping people is important and you're nice. You always say good morning. You don't yell at mom like the other boss did." Brian had to breathe deeply to keep the emotion from overflowing. He opened the piggy bank's lid. Inside were quarters, dimes, nickels, some pennies. He emptied it onto the desk and started counting. Exactly $75. For a businessman who dealt in millions, it was nothing. For Anna, it was everything. "You're very special, you know that." Anna shrugged an awkward, adorable gesture. "My mom says that all the time, but I just wanted you to be happy again." Brian put the coins back in the piggy bank and closed the lid. He stored that scratched pink pig in the main drawer of his desk right next to documents worth fortunes. In that moment, the piggy bank was worth more than any contract. "You know what I'm going to do, Anna. I'm going to keep this here like a treasure, and when you grow up, I'll give it back with a surprise inside." "Okay." Anna's eyes sparkled. "Promise? I promise." The girl smiled and ran off to find her mother. Brian was left alone in the office, staring at the drawer where he'd put the piggy bank. For the first time in weeks, he didn't feel alone, didn't feel betrayed, he felt hope. And it was in that moment that Brian made a decision. He was going to learn more about Teresa and Anna, not out of invasive curiosity, but because he felt these two had come into his life for a reason. Before we wrap up, I want to thank you for sticking with this story so far. Your support, your presence makes all the difference. Stay with us because what's coming next will surprise you even more. Brian hired a discreet investigator, not the kind who follows people with hidden cameras, but a professional who checks public records, credit histories, legally available information. He needed to understand Teresa and Anna's situation better. 2 days later, the report arrived in his email. What Brian read turned his stomach. Teresa Newman, 32 years old. 3 simultaneous jobs, cleaner at 2 offices and housekeeper at 3 homes on weekends. Estimated monthly income, $200 to $400. Rent for a 1-bedroom apartment in Hope Heights, $800. Utilities, electricity, water, gas, $300. Basic food, $400. Transportation, $300. Almost nothing left over. But what really gripped Brian's heart was the medical section. Anna had chronic asthma. She'd been hospitalized twice in the last year. One crisis nearly killed her when Teresa took too long to get care at the public clinic. The girl needed expensive inhalers, regular pulmonologist checkups, a mold and damp-free environment, things Teresa simply couldn't provide. The apartment they lived in had leaks. The investigator got external photos of the building, an old housing complex with peeling walls and visible damp stains even from outside. It was literally killing Anna bit by bit. Brian closed his laptop and sat in silence for long minutes. Then he picked up the phone and called HR. "Hi, Claudia. I need you to call Teresa Newman in for a talk in my office, today, if possible." An hour later, Teresa knocked on the door. She was visibly nervous, twisting her hands. When someone from upper management called a cleaner in, it usually meant firing. "Sit down, please, Teresa." She sat on the edge of the chair, stiff as a statue. "Did I do something wrong, Mr. Brian?" "No, you didn't do anything wrong. Quite the opposite. I called you here because I want to make you a proposal." Teresa frowned, confused. "I know about Anna's situation. I know she has asthma. I know the apartment you live in isn't suitable for her condition, and I want to help." Teresa's face hardened instantly. How do you know that Brian realized he'd stepped into dangerous territory? Teresa wasn't a woman who accepted privacy invasions lightly. "I looked into it, and before you get mad, I did it because I care. Anna gave me her piggy bank. A 5-year-old gave me everything she had. That touched me, Teresa. It touched me deeply. You had no right to investigate my life. I know, and I'm sorry for that, but now that I know, I can't pretend I don't. Let me help. I can pay for health insurance for Anna. I can help with a better apartment. I can—" No. The word came out firm, sharp as glass. "Teresa, please." "No, Mr. Brian. I appreciate the concern, I really do, but I don't accept charity. I work, I manage. I've always managed on my own, and I'll keep managing. I don't need handouts from a boss. It's not a handout, it's help. To you, it might be help. To me, it's charity. And I have pride. Mr. Brian, it's one of the few things I have left. My daughter may not have brand-name clothes, may not have fancy toys, but she has dignity, and I'm not selling that dignity for money." Teresa stood, gave a polite nod, and left the office before Brian could respond. He sat there alone, feeling powerless for the first time in a long while. He had all the money in the world, but couldn't help someone who truly needed it. What Brian didn't know was that in 3 days, Teresa would get news that would force her to reconsider everything. Teresa held the envelope with trembling hands. The word eviction was printed in red at the top of the document. 2 months' rent overdue. She had 15 days to settle up or leave the apartment. $800 times 2 that she simply didn't have. Sitting on the torn couch in the tiny living room, Teresa did the math for the 10th time as if the numbers might magically change. They didn't. She'd spent everything on Anna's latest inhalers. The girl had a bad attack 3 weeks ago and needed expensive medication. Teresa chose her daughter's health, she always would, but now the price of that choice was there, printed on official paper. Anna slept in the apartment's only bedroom, hugging a faded teddy bear. She couldn't see her mother break down. Teresa bit her lip hard, swallowing the sob that wanted to burst out. The thought of uprooting Anna from that place, even if it was a leaky apartment, and going where a shelter a friend's couch, she had no family, no support network, just herself. The next day, Teresa arrived at Brian's office with swollen eyes. She'd spent the night awake turning over non-existent options in her head. Brian saw her through the glass hallway and knew immediately something was wrong. He stepped out and went to her. "Teresa." "What happened?" She looked away, proud even in despair. "Nothing, Mr. Brian, just a bad night's sleep." "Teresa, I can tell when someone's not okay. Please trust me." It was the word trust that broke her last resistance. Teresa pulled the envelope from her worn purse and handed it to Brian without a word. He read it quickly. His jaw tightened. 15 days. I couldn't pay. Spent everything on meds for Anna. She had a crisis. And how much do you need, Mr. Brian? I didn't come here to ask for money. I know, but I'm offering. How much? 1,600. But I won't take it for free. I don't accept charity. Brian thought fast. He knew Teresa's pride was a wall that couldn't be toppled with simple generosity. He needed a different approach. What if it wasn't charity? What if it was a formal loan? Teresa raised her eyes suspicious. How so? A loan. With a registered contract all proper. You take the money, pay the back rent, and pay me back through payroll deductions. 5% interest per year, less than any bank would charge. In 12 installments, $140 a month. Can you afford that? Teresa did the mental math. It was tight, very tight, but possible. And why would you do that? Because Anna gave me $75. She gave me everything she had to help me when I was sad. Now it's my turn to give back, but the right way, with respect, with dignity. You won't owe me anything beyond the money and interest. No favors, no moral debt. It's just business. Teresa breathed deeply. Every fiber of her being screamed to refuse to find another way, but there was no other way. No, this time she looked at Brian and saw something that disarmed her completely. Genuine respect. He wasn't looking at her with pity. He was looking at her as an equal. All registered with a signed contract. All registered. You can take it to your lawyer to review if you want. I don't have a lawyer. Then I'll pay for one to review the contract for you. That way you're sure there's no trick. Teresa felt her eyes burn. For the first time in years, someone was truly extending a hand with no ulterior motive, no expectation in return. Okay, I accept. Brian smiled a small, genuine smile. Great, I'll prepare the contract today. Tomorrow the money will be in your account. And that's how the relationship between Brian, Teresa, and Anna changed forever. What neither of them imagined was that in 2 weeks, a ghost from the past would reappear bringing a storm with it. Hugh Morrison showed up on a rainy Tuesday. Teresa was hanging clothes on the makeshift line in the laundry area when she heard the knock on the door. Loud, insistent knocks, the kind that make your heart race before you even know who it is. She opened the door and froze. 6 years. 6 years since she'd last seen that face. The man who left her 4 months pregnant with a text message saying he wasn't ready to be a father. The man who never paid a cent in child support. The man who never wanted to know if his daughter was alive or dead. Hi, Teresa. His voice was casual, as if they'd seen each other last week, as if 6 years of abandonment meant nothing. What do you want here, Hugh? I came to see my daughter. I have rights. No. Teresa felt rage rise like lava in her throat. Rights. You abandoned her before she was even born. You vanished. Never sent a dime in support. Never wanted to know if she was sick, hungry, alive, and now you show up talking about rights. Hugh shrugged that arrogant gesture Teresa knew well. I was going through a tough time, but now I'm better. I want to meet Anna. I want to be part of her life. No, Teresa. I'm the father. I can go to court, then go. Go and explain to the judge why you disappeared for 6 years. Explain why you never paid support. Explain why your daughter almost died from asthma and you weren't there. Go, Hugh. I'll wait for you in court. Hugh changed tactics. His face softened, falsely vulnerable. I know I messed up. I know I was a coward, but I've changed, Teresa. I swear I've changed. I just want a chance to meet my girl. That's when Anna appeared in the bedroom doorway. She looked at the strange man in the living room and instinctively ran behind her mother, grabbing the edge of Teresa's skirt. Who is he, Mom? Teresa felt her daughter's body tremble against hers. Anna wasn't a child afraid of strangers. She greeted everyone politely, but something about this man scared her. Kids have instincts, adults lose. Nobody, honey, he's leaving. Hugh crouched down, trying to get to Anna's level. Hi, Anna. I'm your dad. The girl clutched her mother's skirt tighter. Her voice came out small, scared. My dad left before I was born. Mom said that. It's true, but I'm back. Back so we can be a family. Enough, Hugh. Get out of my house. Now. He stood slowly but didn't leave. Instead, he crossed his arms and smiled a cold smile that made Teresa realize something was very wrong. I heard you're involved with a rich businessman, a guy named Brian Anderson. People talk. They say he's keeping you, that you're living better now. So that was it. Someone had told Hugh. Someone had gossiped about the loan about Brian, and Hugh smelled money like a vulture smells carrion. It's nothing like that. He's my boss, and the loan he gave me is legal with the contract. Sure, boss. Look, I'm not here to judge. I'm here for my rights. Right to see my daughter, and who knows, right to back child support you owe me for keeping me away from her. Teresa felt the ground vanish under her feet. Back child support? He was twisting everything, turning abandonment into victimhood. Are you crazy? I'm awake. You got a rich guy bankrolling you. Now I want my share. After all, Anna's my kid, too. That's when Anna started crying, not a normal kid's cry, but one of pure panic. Her chest began to wheeze. Teresa recognized it immediately. Asthma attack. Look what you've done. Get out now. Hugh raised his hands in fake surrender. Fine, I'm going, but you'll hear from my lawyer, you can bet on it. He left, slamming the door. Teresa rushed for Anna's inhaler. The girl was breathing hard, her lips turning blue. As she administered the medication, Teresa knew one thing with absolute certainty. This was far from over, and she'd need help. Brian answered the phone on the second ring. Teresa's voice on the other end was broken, desperate in a way he'd never heard. Mr. Brian, I need help. What happened? Between choked sobs, Teresa told everything. Hugh showing up out of nowhere. The threats, Anna's asthma attack, the cruel twist turning abandonment into rights. Brian listened to every word, his jaw tightening more and more. Where are you now? At home. Anna's still scared. She won't stop asking if the bad man is coming back. Listen to me. Tomorrow morning, come to the office. I'm calling Dr. Albert Castillo right now. He's the best family lawyer in the city. I've worked with him on business cases. If anyone can help, it's him, Mr. Brian. I can't afford a lawyer like that. You won't pay. I will. And before you talk about pride, this isn't charity, it's protection. Hugh doesn't want Anna. He wants money. If he gets any kind of custody, he'll use it to extort you for life. So let me do this. For Anna. Teresa breathed deeply on the other end. Her voice came out small, vulnerable. Thank you. The next day, Dr. Albert Castillo was sitting in Brian's office when Teresa arrived. He was a 60-year-old man, gray hair, perfectly combed, impeccable suit, and a sharp gaze from someone who'd seen every variation of human meanness. Mrs. Newman, pleasure to meet you. Let's get straight to the point because time is critical in these cases. Tell me everything from the beginning. Don't leave anything out no matter how painful. Teresa told it all. The brief relationship with Hugh, the unplanned pregnancy, the abandonment by text, 6 years of absolute silence, $0 in support. 0 contact attempts, and now the sudden return demanding rights. Dr. Albert made meticulous notes on a tablet. Do you have his messages from the abandonment? I do. I saved everything. Excellent. Did you ever file for unpaid child support 3 times, but nothing came of it? He always vanished before the hearing. Even better. That shows a pattern. Now, tell me, besides, did anyone witness his visit? The neighbor next door heard everything. Walls are thin. She even knocked after to check if I was okay. Dr. Albert smiled for the first time. It wasn't a happy smile, but the smile of a predator spotting the jugular. Perfect. I'll need her contact. And, Teresa, you need to prepare psychologically. Hugh will try to smear your image. He'll say you're a negligent mother, that the apartment is unfit, that you got involved with a rich boss for gain. All that will be thrown in your face. Teresa swallowed. I know, but the truth is on your side, and truth always wins when it's well documented. It was the following week that Hugh filed the lawsuit seeking joint custody. In the filing, he claimed Teresa was negligent, the apartment posed health risks to Anna, and he'd been unjustly kept from his daughter. Dr. Albert read the suit and laughed. A short, humorless laugh. He's hanged himself. This filing is full of contradictions. Any competent judge will see through it. But 2 days before the hearing, something unexpected happened. Hugh showed up drunk at Teresa's building door at 11 p.m. yelling that he wanted to see his daughter. The neighbor called the police. The police report was filed. Dr. Albert got the news by text and replied with one word. Perfect. The hearing was the next day, and it would be decisive. The courtroom in the central courthouse was cold and impersonal. Teresa sat next to Dr. Albert. Her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles turned white. Brian sat a few rows back for moral support. On the other side, Hugh wore a wrinkled dress shirt trying to look put together, but his red eyes betrayed the hangover. The judge, Patricia Solis, entered the room. She was a 50-year-old woman, rigid posture, and a gaze that forgave no lies. She quickly read the file while everyone waited in silence. All right, Mr. Hugh Morrison, you're seeking joint custody of a child you haven't seen in 6 years and allege the mother is negligent. Correct. Yes, Your Honor. I was prevented from seeing my daughter. I tried several times, but the mother always pushed me away. Dr. Albert stood calmly. Your Honor, if I may, I'd like to present evidence that completely contradicts that version. Proceed. Dr. Albert opened a folder and began distributing documents to the judge. His voice was calm, methodically destructive. First, text messages dated 6 years ago, where Mr. Morrison tells Mrs. Newman he doesn't want to be a father and she should handle it alone. Second, 3 child support enforcement filings archived because the defendant never appeared. Third, records of 2 hospitalizations for the minor Anna due to asthma crises where the father field is marked absent. Fourth statement from neighbor Mrs. Marta testifying to Mr. Morrison's threatening visit 2 weeks ago. And fifth, police report from 3 days ago for disturbance and intoxication, where Mr. Morrison was detained by police at Mrs. Newman's building at 11 p.m. Hugh paled. His lawyer, a young woman clearly caught off guard, flipped desperately through her papers trying to find a defense. The judge read each document carefully. Her face stayed neutral, but the room's atmosphere shifted. She finally looked up and fixed her gaze on Hugh. Mr. Morrison, do you have anything to say in your defense? Hugh stood visibly nervous and then made the fatal mistake. Instead of staying composed, he exploded. She's got a rich guy keeping her, living high, good life at the expense of a boss who obviously wants something in return. And me, the real father, left out. Is that fair? Silence in the room. Dr. Albert didn't need to say a thing. Hugh had condemned himself with his own words. The judge leaned back in her chair, an expression of utter contempt on her face. Mr. Morrison, your motivations are extremely clear now. You're not here for the child, you're here for money. And that, sir, is disgusting. Your Honor, silence. I'm not done. You abandoned a child, never paid a cent in support, never inquired about her health, and now you show up wanting joint custody, not out of paternal love, but financial interest. That won't happen. The judge began writing the ruling. Each word was a hammer blow to Hugh's claims. I deny the joint custody request entirely. Furthermore, I order the plaintiff to pay retroactive child support for the past 6 years at 1 minimum wage per month, totaling a substantial sum, plus ongoing monthly support. I suspend any visitation rights until the plaintiff proves through psychological evaluation and drug testing that he provides a safe environment for the minor. Hugh tried to protest, but the judge banged the gavel. Case closed. Next. Teresa broke down in tears. Dr. Albert placed a respectful hand on her shoulder. Brian, in the back rows, breathed deeply for the first time in days. Hugh stumbled out of the room, utterly defeated. Outside, in the courthouse hallway, Teresa hugged Brian tightly. It was the first time she'd allowed that closeness, and he returned the hug, knowing this was just the start of something much bigger. 6 months later, life had changed in ways none of the 3 could have imagined. Teresa was no longer a cleaner. Brian promoted her to coordinator of cleaning and general services for the company with a formal contract, a decent salary of $400-500 meal vouchers, full health insurance, and all the benefits she'd never dreamed of. She now managed a team of 12, wore an administrative uniform, and had her own desk on the 2nd floor. Her former co-workers treated her with respect, some with envy, but Teresa didn't care. She'd earned it with sweat dignity and never bowing her head. The apartment in Hope Heights was left behind. Brian helped Teresa find a better place in a residential neighborhood closer to the office. 2 bedrooms, no leaks, proper ventilation. The rent was higher, but with her new salary, Teresa could pay it easily. Anna finally had her own room painted soft pink with a new bed that didn't creak and a closet where her few clothes weren't crammed anymore. Anna's asthma was under control. The pulmonologist from the health insurance taught Teresa to spot crisis triggers, and the girl no longer had those terrifying breathless episodes. She gained 6 pounds. Her face became rosier, more alive. She started attending a private school that Brian arranged through connections. And on Saturdays, Anna took ballet classes at a local studio. She wore a pink leotard and white slippers that she treated like treasures. Brian became a constant presence in their lives, not invasively or possessively, but as someone who genuinely cared. He took Anna for ice cream on Sundays, helped Teresa with paperwork she didn't understand, showed up in the front row at Anna's ballet recitals recording everything on his phone like a proud father because that's what he was becoming even without blood ties a father figure. Teresa and Brian never formalized anything. They weren't dating, weren't engaged, but there was something there, growing slowly with respect. No rush, glances that lingered a second too long. Hands brushing lightly when passing a coffee cup, smiles that meant more than words. They were building something solid based on mutual trust, not desperate passion. Hugh never showed up again. After the humiliating court defeat, he vanished once more. The retroactive support was never paid, but Teresa didn't care anymore. She didn't need his money, and Anna certainly didn't need his toxic presence. One Saturday afternoon after ballet class, Anna came home with a drawing from school. It was a simple drawing of 3 people holding hands, a brunette woman, a small girl, and a tall man. Below, in the teacher's neat handwriting transcribing the child's words, it said, "My real family." Teresa showed the drawing to Brian that evening. He stared at it for long minutes, his eyes shining with contained emotion. Without a word, he took the drawing, put it in a simple wooden frame, and hung it on his office wall right next to the safe that had changed everything. Because sometimes life takes everything from you, betrays you, hurts you, makes you doubt humanity. But sometimes, in the most unexpected moment, a 5-year-old tidies stacks of money instead of stealing them. And that single act of purity has the power to rebuild entire worlds. Brian, Teresa, and Anna weren't a conventional family, but they were a true family. And in the end, that's what mattered. And you witnessed an unexpected act of kindness that changed your view of someone. Share it in the comments below. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more heart-touching tales. Until next time.